Hi everybody, it's great to be back here again on Itamar, and let's get rolling on our Torah lesson for the week. Last night I gave a lesson on the ethics of fathers. We return now to the classes on Pirkei Avot. They'll be as we study through the summer months, as our custom. And at the same time we will continue, God willing, with our lessons on the Torah portions. And I want to begin by focusing really on the story of this person who curses God. Let's understand who this person is all about, and it takes place at the end of this week's portion. But right before that happens, I want to read the verse, and it talks about an interesting law, and the law is the showbread. And what does it say? It says, "Velakachta solet vafita ota 12 chalot." You will take solet, which is fine flour, and you will bake 12 chalot, 12 breads. Shnei esronim yeh chala achat. Each one will be a quantity of shnei esronim. V'samta otam shtayim marachot shesh marachat al hashulchan hatahor lefnei Hashem. There will be two different piles of them, marachot, two different orders of the bread, 6 in each, and it will be placed on a pure table. And we know this was in the temple. This was on the northern side, before God. V'natata ala marechet levona, and also there will be levona, which is a spice, zakah, v'ayita lelechem laskara ishel Hashem, will be a remembrance. B'yom HaShabbat, u'b'yom HaShabbat ya'achenu, which means from week to week it will be changed. Every Shabbat, it was customary to make the change of the showbread, and this was done by bringing out new bread, baking new bread, and bringing it out. Of course, the bread was really matzot; it wasn't chametz. Everything in the temple, on the most part, was only matzah, and it says tamid, always before God, and therefore the bread from last Shabbat would remain on the table, and first place the new bread, and then it would be taken off, and it would be eaten by the high priest and the other kohanim. Right after, and it says, "Vayita l'Aaron ul'chanav v'achlu b'makom kadosh," will be for Aaron and his sons, and they eat in the holy place. Ki kodesh kodeshim hu lo mishei Hashem chok olam. This holy of holies and everlasting order, everlasting law. Right after this description of the showbread, the Torah opens up with a story. Vayetzei ben isha Yisraelit, a son of an Israeli woman comes out. V'hu ben ish Mitzri, and he's the son of an Egyptian. Betoch bnei Yisrael, out of Israel. Vayinatzu b'machaneh, and they began to have an argument in the camp. Ben Yisraelit, the son of this Jewish woman, v'ish Yisraeli, and this an Israeli man, which means they are arguing about something. And then what happens is Vayikov ben Isha Yisraelit, he curses the son of the Israeli woman. He curses God. Vayikalel vayaviu oto al Moshe, and they brought him to Moshe Rabbeinu. V'shem imo Shlomit bat Divri, and his mother's name was Shlomit bat Divri. Lemafay Dan, from the tribe of Dan. Vaynichu b'mishmar, they put him in a watch place, like a jail, leforosh lehem al pi Hashem, in order to understand what God wants to do with this person who cursed God. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe leimon, God speaks to Moshe saying, "Utzei mekalel mechutz lamachane," and take him outside the camp. V'samchu kol hashom'im et yedehem al rosho, and everyone should place their hands upon his head. V'ragmu oto kol ha'ida, and everyone should stone him. The entire congregation will stone him. And then it goes on to explain the more the laws about cursing God. Number one, we have to ask ourselves to understand this particular portion of the Torah is, what is the connection between the showbread and now this particular instance? And in order to bring us into the understanding a little bit more details about what's going on, first let's understand again who this son of the Egyptian was. On one hand, he was Jewish because he had a Jewish mother, but he came from an Egyptian root. And what is that all about? Well, Rashi on the Torah, his commentary, he brings down, and he asks the question first about the language in the Torah, because it says Vayetzei. What does Vayetzei mean? Vayetzei means he came out somewhere. Where did he come out of? And Rashi brings the Midrash and the Talmud, and it says, Meichan Yetza, where did he come out of? Rabbi Levi Omer me'olamo. Rabbi Levi says he came out of his world. Meaning, that right now, what he did, this action of cursing God, took him out of this world, of course. Rabbi Berechia Omer, what does Rabbi Berechia Omer? Parashat shelemali yatsa. He came from the portion that is connected to this, which I just mentioned, the question about the showbread connection. And what happened? What is this whole thing about the showbread and have to do with this guy cursing God? Yet it says ligleg va'amar, he made fun and he said, Bayom HaShabbat yachenu. Why on Shabbat they're changing the bread? It was there all week long, and they're making the new bread on Shabbat. Derech hamelech lechol pat chama b'chol yom. He goes, wow, a king's way is to eat warm bread every single day. O shem pat sonelet shel shiva yamim. How can it possibly be that he's going to eat cold bread for an entire week went by and he's going to eat cold bread? And this, of course, was the words of this mother, the son of the mother who's Jewish, father Egyptian. And here he's mocking, according to his opinion, the showbread, saying, how could this be a way of honoring God, or this is the way God eats a king? And there's another opinion brought down, which is also from an ancient midrash, and it says, he came out of the court of Moses. He wanted to set up his tent in the encampment of Dan. They said to him, what are you doing here? When he came to set up his camp in the tribal portion of Dan, they asked him, what are you doing here? And he says, I'm a person from the tribe of Dan. And they answered him, no, it goes according to the father, and your father was not of Jewish descent, and therefore you cannot set up your tent in the Dan portion. Then he went to stand before Moses, and he came out not being able to set up his tent in that portion. He stood up and he cursed. These three opinions again of what caused him. Let's try to analyze these three opinions, and first go back a little bit further to understand who this Egyptian, or half Egyptian, half Jew was. And he was considered, of course, Jewish since his mother was Jewish. Rashi brings down again another midrash and talks about the story, we're going way back, which I'm going to read now, about Moses killing the Egyptian. And let's read about that story for a minute. And what does it say? And it was in those days, Vayigdal Moshe, and Moshe Rabbeinu, he got older, he grew up, he was a strong guy. Vayetze el achav, and he went out to his brethren. Vayal b'sevotam, and he saw their sufferings. Vayal ish mitzri, makeh ish ivri. And he saw an Egyptian man hitting a Jewish person from his brothers. And if you look very carefully, we see the language here is very close. It says, Moshe Rabbeinu vayetze el achav, and he goes out to his brothers. And of course we'll compare that in a minute to this person who cursed God, his going out. Vayifen kol v'cho, and he looked right and left. Vayal ki enish, and he saw there was no anyone around. Vayachet hamitzri, and he struck the Egyptian. Vayitmeneu b'chol, and he hit him in the sand. And then it says vayetze again, the word vayetze, and he came out again on the second day. V'nei shnei anashim ivrim nitzim, there were two Egyptians quarreling with one another. Vayomer l'rasha lama takeh recha, and one said to the other, Moshe says to them, why are you hitting each other? You're evil. Vayomer mi samcha leish salva shafet alein, who put you over us? Halehogeni ata omer, are you going to kill us? That you say, kasher rakta, the way you killed the Egyptian. Vayira Moshe vayomar achenu da'adavar. Moshe was afraid, and he said, the word is out, and Paro will kill him, and Moshe runs away. Now, it's very, very interesting. Here, the same language, going out, of course, referring to Moshe Rabbeinu. And also, in addition, we see the Egyptian mentioned here, Mitzri. Who is this Egyptian we're talking about that Moshe Rabbeinu kills, and why does he kill him for hitting the Jew? Why is he hitting the Jew? Well, Rashi again hints to that right away over here in this week's portion. And Rashi brings down and says, according to Midrash, Hu Mitzri Sharago Moshe. This right now, the son that we're talking about now, that the son of this Jewish woman who had an Egyptian father, he happens to be the son of the Egyptian that Moshe Rabbeinu killed. And the question is, what happened? How did this relationship take place between Shlomit Bat Divri and this Egyptian man? What happened? How did this happen? The relationship that she had a son with this Egyptian man. And Rashi again is brought down in all the Midrashim. What happened was Shlomit Bat Divri was a very attractive woman, and one of the Egyptian police officers put his eyes on her. And when he would wake the Jews up for slavery very early in the morning, and he woke them up, took the husband, put him to work, and he came into the house, and then he raped the mother, Shlomit Bat Divri, and she got pregnant, and this child that was born to her and this Egyptian man happened to be this guy. He now was cursing God. Nevertheless, of course, he was upset about her husband being Jewish and whatever, and the Egyptian was hating him. He killed him. He wanted to kill him because of this relationship, of course, because of his jealousy that he had such a wife, whatever. Nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, kills, as a response, he kills his Egyptian, and this is the story how it all came to be, this whole story. And very interesting, here, later on down the line, this Egyptian, this Egyptian boy, or half Jewish again, he is having an argument. And what is this argument about? There are three different explanations that we just read about. One explanation, again, is about the showbread. He doesn't understand this business with the showbread. He, of course, knew what Egyptian society is all about, growing up in the palaces of Egypt, or seeing it at least. And he didn't understand what this Jewish thing is all about. Letting bread sit on the table 1 week, and then, of course, changing it. But still, how can you have bread that's not fresh, warm bread for a king? That was one of his one possibility. And the other possibility was, again, he was very, very upset with the fact that he came out of Moshe Rabbeinu's court guilty that he wasn't able to plant his tent in that particular area. And the question is, again, well, the guy seemingly has a legitimate request. I mean, he wants a portion of land, and he wants to set up his land. I mean, his mother is Jewish, so his father wasn't okay, but is he to blame? And he would like a piece of land. And where else can he set up his tent if not for the area of Dan, which his mother was from? And this, of course, made him angry. And this caused him, for some reason, to curse God. Now, what is it? Of course, he blaming God, and we have to try to understand a little bit more detail about here. Well, what I want to try to do now is to connect these two, this and the showbread, together, because they have a lot to do with one another. The showbread, there were 12 pieces of bread, and each piece of bread represented one of the tribes of Israel. Each bread, of course, by the bread being on the table all week long, would bring abundance for the entire tribes of Israel, would bring a blessing for the tribes of Israel. 6 on one and 6 on the other reminds of the famous mountains of Gerizim and Eval, the blessing and the curse. The tribes would always divide like into a half, which is also very, very interesting. And Rav Tzadok HaKohen Milublin, one of the great Hasidic masters, talks about the spiritual meaning of the showbread. And here, this person that cursed God, he was first did not know, when he was coming against the showbread, he was coming against the holiness of the Jewish nation. Now he, again, of course, was not to blame, but his particular background and how he came to be part of the Jewish nation, because he was Jewish. But the fact that he had a father who was an evil man and a murderer and beating and raper, obviously, this cannot be completely ignored. And therefore, if a mother, and of course it could have been a father, a regular non-Jew that was a righteous person, but here happened to be a non-Jew that was an evil person. But again, it cannot be ignored that his roots came from an Egyptian as far as the father's side, because the tribal portions, the land is divided into according to the father, and not according to the mother. And therefore, according to legal laws, he didn't have a piece of land in the tribe. He would obviously they would have found a solution for him, like they found a solution again for the daughters of Tzlofchad and other solutions when questions came up. But the fact that he did not understand the division of holiness amongst the nation of Israel, and right now it's mentioned the Parashat of Emor, which is all about the high priest Just like the regular Jews that are born Jews know that there's a hierarchy. It's not that they're better, but there's a purpose for every functioneer, every person who has a certain job in the land of Israel, and the people of Israel. For example, the priests, their job is to work in the temple and to serve, to do the service as our emissaries. It doesn't make them better than anyone else in the Jewish nation, but they have a certain purpose, and we have to understand their holiness. We have to respect them and allow them to fulfill their particular function. The same way the Levites have their function, the same way the Israelites have their function, and the same way those who join the nation of Israel, those who convert to Judaism and are part of the Jewish nation, have a function. But everyone has a different purpose, and everyone has to understand the rules that are involved, because God's rules are way beyond our understanding. The same way that every nation in the world has a certain purpose. Now what happened here is this Egyptian, the son of Egyptian, the son of a Jewish mother, he did not understand this whole process. It was very much reminds us of the Korach situation, who didn't understand the holiness of Moshe and Aaron. And therefore he was rebelling. And when he rebelled against the showbread, he really was rebelling against the whole understanding of the spiritual divisions amongst the nation of Israel, the spiritual hierarchy that exists, or the functions maybe. It's more of a proper word. The different levels of purposes of every of the different parts of Israel, of the tribes of Israel. And he didn't understand his place. And that was very, very hard for him, because, of course, on one hand, he was pained, whatever it was, but if he really accepted to being part of the Jewish nation, he has to understand what his purpose. Every person has his own soul and an amazing purpose in this world. And he could have found his route and his direction, but he chose to rebel and do the worst thing of all, to curse God. And why did he curse God? Because don't forget, when Moshe Rabbeinu, and I'm going to go over the verses, when Moshe Rabbeinu responds to this Egyptian, what does he do? The opinions brought down in the Midrash that when he killed this Egyptian, he used the name of God. And therefore, this was like his son here now rebelling against God, because Moshe Rabbeinu used God's name, so now he said, I'm going to curse God's name. By using that same name that Moshe Rabbeinu was able to kill the Egyptian, he wanted to curse God's name, holy name. And this showed really that he turned and he really stuck with the Egyptian side and didn't want to accept really the house of Israel, because this was his test, that he could have chose to really be part of the house of Israel and overcome this test he had. It wasn't an easy test. Of course it wasn't an easy test. To realize he didn't have a portion with Dan, would have to choose a different place to live, whatever it was. But he could have rose up and realized his place in this world. Everyone should realize where they are, not try to look for other purposes in other places that don't belong to them. And therefore, the fact that he lost that proper understanding and the division and didn't understand the holiness of Israel, and he went against the holiness of the Jewish nation, he was cast out of the Jewish nation, and he did to himself. That's what it says, Vayetze, he left. He left the nation of Israel. He left the camps. He was taken out of the camps when he was stoned, because he did not understand what the holiness of the Jewish nation is all about. And he, of course, did not understand what God is all about, to come and curse God. The worst of all, person cursing God, the one who gives us life and gives us our place in this world, is only thinking to do good to his creations. And that is the important lesson that's behind this portion of the week. Of course, there are many other lessons here as well. But next week we'll continue. So have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbat. I miss you all. It's been really, again, very hard here in Itamar. We've been through a lot of tests ourselves over the last, 6 weeks here. But slowly we're trying to heal the wounds, and we're doing a lot of beautiful things here, building our community, and we're going to continue. So, Shabbat Shalom, ve'litrot.